Hey guys, happy Wednesday. Today we are super excited to have Duncan from Forging Youth Resilience on with us, talking about how CrossFit can be the answer to youth health crisis and how we can have an impact within our affiliates. So with that, I'll turn it over to Duncan for today.
Hi, everyone. Super thankful to be here. Appreciate Jen and Kevin Ogar and Mike G, who in the background facilitated this. And yeah, we have a lot to go over. Um, First, actually, just want to start with sort of what the problem is that we're addressing here. So for me, the problem is that our youth are growing unhealthier in almost every way measurable, and marginalized youth have it the worst. The solution, I believe, is to involve our youth in what we know to be the best of protective factors toward long-term disease, both mental and physical. Our solution, the FIRE solution, is to pair the best in physical fitness methods with protective adult relationships and make that available to all youth with high risk factors. So, in theory, it's not that complicated. And certainly, we're going to discuss some things that you all are very familiar with as affiliate owners and people who do CrossFit and coaches. But in practice, there's a lot to the details, and we're going to go through what the FIRE method is and how we do this at Forging Youth Resilience. So, first of all, some updated numbers on who our youth are. The prevalence of metabolic disorders is on the rise, and you can see the numbers there currently. 22% for the population that we typically target, 20% for the slightly younger crew, that 6 to 11-year-old age range. Projection by the CDC by 2060, type 2 diabetes is expected to increase 700%. 700% for people under 20 years old. 1 in 7 kids, 3 to 17 currently have a mental health condition. These are all CDC numbers and reasons for why we're doing what we're doing. So to understand Forging Youth Resilience, we have to understand adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. So I'm going to make a quick stop on this content. And by the way, feel free to raise your hand. Jen, if you can look out for people raising their hands, stop me if you have any questions as we go. The ACEs study was out of San Diego. It was originally had to do with obesity, and Kaiser put it on. It was 17,000 people, which is a huge N, in the late 90s. And it had 10 questions around certain life experiences before you were 18 years old. What it found is some pretty surprising numbers in terms of how universal trauma was, or these adverse childhood experiences, and the results of that trauma in terms of lowered life expectancy and a number of health and risk factors. So when we think about who the FIRE youth are, like who are the youth that are involved in Forging Youth Resilience, we have to assume that their ACEs are certainly above 4, which was a cutoff range that they found for most negative consequences occurring for most people who had 4 or more ACEs. So this sort of gives a picture of who we're working with when we're working with the youth of FIRE. So the health consequences, I think, were the more surprising part to the study leaders. That is, you didn't just end up with depression or a risk of suicide attempt. Both of those jumped by 460, and you see 1,220% for people with four or more ACEs. There's also an increased risk for heart disease, COPD, hepatitis, and so on. So the physical health consequences being significant in addition to what you would expect in terms of the mental health consequences. So that's ACEs. So this is a bit more updated than that. This has to do with what we're currently learning about in terms of what actually helps youth and specifically youth that are involved in sport. So trauma-informed training, so trauma-informed coaching is a piece of what we do with fire, and we're going to talk a bit more about that. Generally, things have been found that teachers have an improved impact on their youth, but they also have an improved job satisfaction when trauma informed is something that they've been involved in. So they've been educated on kind of where trauma comes from and how it impacts their students. That has implications for coaches, CrossFit Kids coaches, or I would argue any CrossFit coach in general, that your satisfaction with being able to meet your athletes where they are and promote their health has to do with understanding where they are coming from, both in terms of their history, any trauma, or the mental health variables therein. 53.8% of youth, 6 to 17, participate in any sport. Generally, we think that has a correlation with healthier self-esteem, social identity, and a protection from suicide. But it's complicated, as U.S. Center for Safe Sport has discovered. There's also an exclusionary piece that goes along with being involved in sports, and some discrimination, as well as difficulties, especially for minority or marginalized youth. So now Aspen Institute is starting to find we're having a decline in participation for several reasons there. And this has a disproportionate impact on lower SES youth, and they tend to be less involved in sport and physical fitness programs. So, no surprise, I think this is where fire comes in, and I see our role and room for impact given these stats. So one thing about our method, we're all targeting physical fitness. One just kind of mind-blowing study came out last year on JAMA Pediatrics, and this was a Taiwanese study. The N was almost 2 million kids. So a study that size is just tough to pull off anyway. And in fact, I believe it could only happen really in a place like Taiwan, where they had the ability to just pull health data alongside physical fitness measures that were a part of the kids' regular school program. What they found was pretty astounding. Cardio, endurance, muscular endurance, muscular power, and flexibility were things that they were measuring, and the result was, well, let's go to the variables they were using. So their cardio measure was an 800-meter run. Their muscular endurance was a bent leg curl up, so more like a crunch. And then muscular power was measured with standing broad jump, and flexibility was a two-leg stretched out in front, sit and reach test. And then they matched that with anyone who had been diagnosed with anxiety, depression, or ADHD. And that was during the same time period. Results indicated that lower levels of physical fitness, particularly cardiorespiratory, muscular fitness, are independently associated with a higher incidence of anxiety, depression, ADHD. Flexibility was not shown to be any important variable. So the results showed that if we worked with physical fitness alone, we could move the needle on the future diagnosis of any of these mental health concerns. And not just in a small way or a small sample. Again, this is with nearly 2 million children over a 10-year period. So then the relational side of what we do with fire is also borne out in the research. There are a number of studies that have looked at what it really takes for a kid to kind of make it through and show some resilience. And often what is found is it just requires one consistent adult to provide a protective buffer against what their life experiences are. We'll go into kind of how that factors into fire, but certainly Kelsey, who's on the call with us here, who works with Fire Detroit, can attest to the fact that our coaches and our local club leaders are often that one adult who is consistent over time for these kids and buffers against the impact of ACEs, both mental and physical. So again, the results of their research, uh, one positive adult child relationship, lowered major depression disorder, major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and perceived stress among youth. So the implications for our athletes from this research is that if we continue to improve cardiorespiratory fitness, muscular endurance, and power, we're going to lower the incidence of major mental health issues. If we continue to be that one stable, warm, consistent non-parent, that we're providing a buffer against their ACEs or any childhood trauma they've experienced. And if we continue the ongoing process of understanding trauma in our athletes, then we're matching our methods with the best practices for our youth in coaching. And we're going to continue to do this and supply our program free of cost so that we meet the most marginalized youth or any youth that may have barriers to our program otherwise. So that is sort of a research review of what we do and why we do it. Now going to go into kind of what our program is, what is Forging Youth Resilience, and how we operate. So our mission is there on the screen. We are empowering young people to build physical and mental strength for life by providing access to gyms like yours and as well as nutrition, education, and mentorship. So we do have a vision where all young people feel strong, capable, and confident to become the best versions of themselves. And GRIT is our acronym for our core values: growth, respect, integrity, and teamwork. Currently, we operate out of 21 local clubs. We've had 2 new clubs on board. Actually, Port Washington, Wisconsin is not just onboarding, they are a current club. But here's a list of where we are across the country currently. Who we serve. So we do have some variables that kind of define most of the youth that we work with, though I'd say not all. These are just some of the risk variables that are involved in the youth that we work with regularly. They may be in foster care, they may be out of school or out of school youth who are facing unemployment. Under-resourced areas is very common. Youth that are involved with the justice system. We have some programs that work directly with youth corrections and others that work out of pretty standard CrossFit gyms where it's youth in the neighborhood that are accessing their program, and some who have outreach programs that have gone and found youth in other areas that then bring them to their location. Real quick, I wanted to spotlight one of our athletes. This is Elena. She is become just a rock star within our program. She is an adaptive athlete. She uh, came from Kelsey's program, and perhaps you'll hear more about her that way. But she is someone who came to our camp, who hiked our mountain, and that's a picture on the far left, even though that was a significant challenge for her compared to other youth. But this, I think, highlights the fact that any and all youth can improve in our program and all are welcome. And Elena's gone on to do some pretty important work within the adaptive coaching community. So she has been a rock star for sure. So part of what we offer with Fire is our local club summit. It's an in-person opportunity to network and also have workshops and learn a bit more. I was talking before about trauma-informed coaching. It's generally taught through modules that we have available online, but also in person when we have our summit. It's one of our two key events throughout the year, summit and camp. And thankfully, this year we're offering both of those in person. Um, we do so at the CrossFit Community Center at the Phoenix here in Denver. And we have for several years, and just a great opportunity for people to connect and share best practices with each other. So the local club leaders get the opportunity to get to know each other better and hear about what each location is doing better and better, and we can steal ideas from each other. And that's a really helpful part of what we do. And then there's camp. So camp actually for us starts next week. So this is kind of crunch time for us. It's a week-long camp up outside of Boulder, Colorado, a chance for youth to come in from all over the country and experience what I think is really the Fire method condensed into its purest form. We're all living together, we're eating every meal together, we're participating in every activity together and forming these bonds and connections. Um, Kids routinely come out of this saying that they now feel like they have family within Fire beyond their local clubs. That the connections they form during camp are super strong and enduring. So often kids connect with each other throughout the year. Here's some of our volunteers. You may recognize Ben from WAD Prep on the left, and Pamela. She works with Mayhem and is a gymnastics coach. We have yoga and meditation and sort of calming practices worked into our camp. We also have high ropes course. This is at Ballarat, which is Denver Public Schools Denver Public Schools outdoor education classroom up in the mountains. A group shot of us from camp. Camp also includes something that I lead every evening. It's called Sharing Circle. It's more or less a group therapy opportunity for other youth to hear what each other have been through and to form these connections around shared emotional experiences and also get to know each other really well. Some outcomes from camp, so increased perceptions in terms of self-confidence, the ability to face problems or come up with solutions for the problems they're facing, how to fuel their bodies better, and just general belief in themselves. Something we've been tracking at camp over the years. So in some ways, our approach is similar to CrossFit classes, but I want to take some time to kind of outline how we're a little bit different as well. So we provide these classes all over the country. You saw all of our locations in a similar format, but we'll ask about mood at the check-in. We'll ask about how people are doing. It's important for us to know that. I'll go through why here in a minute. We'll spell out our expectations. We'll provide them with consistency. So coaches who are showing up regularly um, stand the chance to be that one adult, and they really don't if they're not providing that consistency. We'll provide the workout and then generally a cool down with some mindfulness or a skill or some discussion of the week ahead. We always create a positive experience as best we can. But I think something to understand about FIRE as well is that there's so much you can do with the FIRE program that is beyond the classes that we offer. So Fire Aggie Land down in Texas is a great example of a program that's incorporated. They have a cooking night. They have a coffee circle for the parents while the kids are working out so that the parents can connect around what the kids are doing. They've had um, opportunities for the kids to learn what sort of jobs the adults do and make sort of job connections and networking and that kind of thing. They're the sky's the limit, truly. There are so many possibilities for what you can do with your program that go beyond just the regular CrossFit class structure. So, in checking in with them at the beginning of class, this is sort of how we may depart a little bit from traditional CrossFit methods. We really do want to know where our youth are in terms of their current tolerance for what's going on around them. So, one method that we use is getting our coaches to understand the window of tolerance. So if you're within the window, then you are ready to challenge yourself. You're ready to function where you are as a baseline coming into it, plus take on additional stressors. Um, if you are currently experiencing too much stress, depending on who you are and what your learning history has been, what your trauma history is, what your background is with any sort of mental health issue, you could go into hyperarousal or hypoarousal. So, hyper being over or too much. These kids can be angry or overwhelmed. They may be having that fight or flight sensation if they're particularly bothered, and that could be up in the hyper arousal. Hypo is when they're kind of zoned out, numb, spacey. They don't really want to participate and they're not really saying why. We may take an athlete like that, and if we know them well, we may challenge them to participate or talk to a peer or take part in the workout. Or we may also say, today is not your day. If we know that athlete really well and what they need to do is remain calm to get back up into the window of tolerance, we may provide them the opportunity to do something different than a super strenuous, highly intense workout. Same for the hyper aroused student. Being able to toss around weights or exert themselves incredibly hard may be exactly what they need to regulate, right? That may pull them down into the window of tolerance. At the same time, that hyperarousal may require a calmer setting or a lower intensity workout to then get them back into the window of tolerance. So I don't know everybody's experience with CrossFit, but I know when I started, certainly the expectation was that I was going to push toward intensity with each and every workout, right? I think there's a little bit of a difference in when we're working with the fire youth that we get to know them well enough that we're going to try and keep them in a more regulated window of tolerance and not necessarily apply one size fits all. Everyone needs an intense workout every day. So that may differ a little bit. So one of the things we truly aim to do with what we're doing in the fire program is actually start to heal some of what's going on from this kid in their past. Again, the ACEs studies showed us that trauma, even little t trauma, like small traumas, are incredibly prevalent because the big T traumas are also more prevalent than we expected before that study came out. So in our classes, one of the things, this is a quote from Mark Schneider, who does trauma-informed weightlifting, or at least did when I took it a couple years back. Strength is the product of trust. And so I think you all can relate to that as coaches within CrossFit, as affiliate owners, that people are going to do more when they feel like they can trust the process, they can trust the people that are putting them in those situations. And if someone really cares about their development, personally, physically, emotionally, they're going to be able to grow much stronger as a result, both physically and emotionally. Um, so some things that give our program the advantages. One is that we are working with kids whose development and plasticity is already a part of the equation. They're changing anyway, and we're layering on top of their development some better tools, some better ways of handling life. Um, that we're passing on to them skills for self-care and stress management, that you're building frustration tolerance and a capacity for dealing with life and increasing stressors more and more every time. Um, the consistent, safe space that's around them, but also the positive culture within fire programs is a big piece of what's curative and helpful for them. So, um, just to back up a second. I would argue that one of the things that we provide consistently is our relationship with the youth. It's part of what I think sustains a local club when we see our relationship matter to the kid that we work with, when we see their lives change as a result of our relationship, that can be self-sustaining for a program, for a local club and fire. Um, I'm going to go through just a little bit just to provide an example of how this works, kind of where I came from and how I got involved. Then going to turn over to Kelsey to talk about Fire Detroit and how she got involved. And then we'll kind of take questions from there about how local clubs start, or any interest that you guys have in any of the things that were presented today. So let's start here. So in 2014, I started to ask some CrossFit friends of mine if they would like to start this thing called Steve's Club. I had heard about Steve's Club through the CrossFit Journal. And basically in 2007, Steve in Camden, New Jersey had started working out with some kids in a park and then eventually an apartment building and started giving away CrossFit classes. That then grew to the point where there were several locations around the country, and that's where our national program comes from. So you'll see there on the left, Steve's Club Denver. This is actually a picture from our very first board meeting. So we're going to talk a little bit about what you need to have in order to run a program, and a board of at least 3 people is one of those things. This was our board. In the top right, those are students from a school that moved in next to this gym, and they became our primary CrossFit athletes, our then Steve's Club athletes. And that was an example of a class that we were running. In the bottom right, there's a reason none of those kids are facing the camera. We work with a locked residential treatment facility here in Denver called Third Way. And that space down there was transformed into sort of more typical CrossFit looking space over time. So we put up racks, they had barbells, we started working out with these kids, and they are certainly high risk kids for who Steve's Club Denver works with. So one of the coolest things I think I've been a part of in my life is watching this particular young person develop. So his name was Louise. His parents did not make it to his high school graduation. That's kind of the relationship he had coming from home. So that picture on the left is me attending his graduation, and also Luis got his level one, and that's you may see some familiar faces and that crew from his seminar, and just so amazing to watch him develop. We also get to be present at college graduations of our athletes. On the left is Ray. She graduated last year from Colorado State. And on the right is Aspen. She just graduated from Dillard University in New Orleans this past May. Both Ray and Aspen went to college on a scholarship that we were able to provide through fundraising locally here in Denver, and supporting those athletes. Both were fairly clear to us that without that financial support, they would not have been able to attend the schools that they went to. Um, Aspen, I'm particularly proud of. She's just starting a job at CU Anschutz, so our local huge hospital here, and she's a nurse within surgical oncology. So part of what working with fire does is open you to these lives and gives you an opportunity to work from their very first CrossFit class all the way up through something like their college graduation. And it's incredibly fulfilling, it's humbling, it's amazing. But I think it's also sustaining for this idea that what we're doing really is the right thing by these youth, as these guys are such good examples of. So, what you need to get started in a fire program, you're going to be emailed that sheet on the left, and actually, we're going to drop that in the chat as well, if I can figure out how. So yes, I will post that in the chat here as well. Sorry, everyone. Not sure I can do that while I'm presenting. Anyway, Jen is also going to email this document to you, so you will have the PDF. Um, with that, you will have a link to getting started, and you will have, most importantly, Christina's email address. So that's there at the bottom, Christina at forgingyouth.org. She is our director of programs and is absolutely wonderful at the hand holding side of it that it takes to get each of the boxes checked for all the things you need to become a program. It is a little bit of a lift to become a program, and I'll have Kelsey speak to that here in a minute, but ultimately incredibly fulfilling for the impact certainly you can have on these youth. So with that, I will pause, and certainly if you have any questions, I can take them now. But if not, I want to turn it over to Kelsey to describe Fire Detroit and why and how she got involved.
Yeah, so my name is Kelsey. I'm the local club leader for Fire Detroit. I am a CrossFit Level 2 coach. I also have my CrossFit Kids certification, Safe Sports certification as well. And so when I first heard about Fire, it was Steve's Club at the time. It was right before they rebranded. And like most CrossFitters do, you drop into gyms when you travel. And so I happened to be in Nashville one summer and dropped in to get a workout in, and they had a local Steve's Club. I'm a school counselor by day, so I have a passion for youth and helping them become the best that they can be. And I love fitness myself, and I see the benefits and know what it can do for people. And so it was like a no-brainer, like why am I not already doing this? And so it really started with just connecting with that local club. They had been pretty well established and had a great program running. And their local club leader was phenomenal in answering all the questions that I had, connecting me with the national organization. And so that's kind of how it started. And so I started a pilot that was in the summer of 2019. So in January of 20, 2020, I started a pilot at a local gym where I was coaching and working out, just to see how it would go, what it would look like, and learned a lot through that process in order to become an official local club, which was then now Fire, because I had rebranded at that time. And so I was connected with Christina, and like Duncan said, she is phenomenal. I wouldn't have been able to do what I did without her, in terms of like the step by step, the paperwork, the things you don't necessarily think about, right? Like in my mind, like I'm here to be with the youth and help them become the best that they can be. But some of that kind of back end stuff that I had no idea what I was doing, she was phenomenal. So I think that's one of the biggest pieces that I just am so passionate about with Fire. Obviously, being able to serve the youth, in the way that we do, especially when you have a passion for fitness. But it's that community, and support that we get from all of the network, across the nation. So whether it's the national board, it's the staff at the national level, but then other local clubs across the country, they've all been phenomenal in helping me not only get started, but to develop my program here in Detroit. So I initially started just running classes out of the local affiliate, like I said, where I was working out and coaching, which then led to an opportunity through CrossFit Foundations to get a grant to start up a gym in a school. So in February of 24 of last year, I opened an affiliate in the school that I work in. And so now I'm running classes both out of the school, and a local affiliate. But being part of that national network, I was able to learn like what other clubs are doing. And some of them have a strong presence within the juvenile justice system, and youth in those programs in their area. And so, with the help of them, as well as expanding horizons, I was able to now have two contracts and partnerships with two different CMOs, one that serves the western side of our county and the other serves the eastern side, to provide our Fire classes, our club, as a service provider for youth that are on probation, or in youth assistance. And so we're now running classes out of multiple affiliates, to be able to service that. And obviously, as we grow, we continue to need people. So it's also helped, that I've been able to, bring on coaches to help, run these classes and give the youth that consistency, like Duncan said, that consistent pace, that relationship that they're building. So it's not just obviously the fitness. We all know that, right? It's like way more than that. And that's what makes us different. So it's been quite a journey, learned a lot, but I really feel like with Fire, I wouldn't be where I was. I wouldn't be able to reach the youth that I'm currently reaching. And I have a lot of success stories like Duncan was able to share. And sometimes that success looks like Alina, like he mentioned. She's running her own adaptive athlete experience seminar across the nation now, because of what she learned, and just we were able to kind of light her spark, right, and see what she's capable of, and find her passions. And now she's carrying it out into the world. I have another athlete who started with us, was failing all of his classes. If anybody looked at him at the time when he started, they would have been like, yep, he's definitely not going to graduate. He's not going to make it. He just graduated this spring. He also made the varsity basketball team his senior year. He was cut every other year, was ineligible some of those years. So for him to be eligible, make the team, and now graduate high school. So there's a lot of different stories. We had a fundraiser last night, actually, for our local club. And one of my former athletes, she's actually the first athlete that I brought to camp 4 years ago. She just graduated with her bachelor's and is now, heading off to law school. And same thing when she started with us. She was homeless, in and out, sleeping at a friend's house or wherever she could find a place to stay. And now she's doing the thing. So it's just really cool. Just a great opportunity, because we don't know that all these youth are capable. And so just giving them that opportunity to see that for themselves and support them through that.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate everything that's going on in Detroit, and didn't hear about law school. That's awesome.
Yes, just found out last night.
Oh my goodness. That's so
Yeah,
great.
I know.
We also have on the call Fred Dayton, who runs one part of the Fire Denver program. I wanted to give him a chance to just sort of say who they are and what they do. Let's see if I can do this. So that's Fred there on the far right.
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Hey, so I'm Fred Dayton, the affiliate owner for Mach 983 CrossFit. We are in Denver, right on the Denver Aurora border. So as an affiliate owner, we all have a why, right? Why do we open our affiliate? Mine stretches all the way back to when I was a youth. I was in that at risk, in that troubled category. I got into a lot of trouble in school, got into a lot of trouble outside of school. So that's where kind of my journey started. My outlet when I was growing up was skateboarding. I fell in love with that. That was my passion. I would do a lot of skateboarding competitions in my town in Maryland. I really found a lot of mentorship, a lot of connection, a lot of value from that. So fast forward in my kind of life, I got to a point where I found CrossFit. And I saw similar kind of values there in CrossFit. And I started helping out by coaching with Fire Denver. So some of the programs that Duncan mentioned earlier with Third Way, we were working out using Fire Denver equipment, basically in the back of this house of a Third Way house. So it was like 10, 12 athletes would come to this class. We had very limited equipment, very limited space. We were just making it work though. We would throw together these workouts once a week. They would ask for more programming, nutrition advice. They were seeing value outside of me coming every week by them kind of creating their own group environment for these CrossFit workouts. They'd always come to me and say, "Hey, Fred, like, what do you think about this WOD? We did this WOD yesterday. Like, it was awesome." So from there, I saw a need, and then we kind of used that as motivation to open an affiliate. So a lot of my values, a lot of my motivation when we opened Mach was taking into consideration Fire Denver, taking in like using that as a home, a safe spot for these athletes. So what it kind of looked like when we first started, it was kind of a hybrid mix of basically our own classes for Fire Denver. Then we started to integrate a little bit more into our regular classes, which I didn't foresee this at the time, but the mentorship from athletes that were attending the classes, they got a lot of value in working hand in hand with our Fire Denver athletes. We have a lot of professionals that are, doctors, lawyers, in whatever profession it may be. These natural kind of relationships were formed, and there was questions in class like, "Hey, like I'm thinking about X school or X trade or X whatever." There's probably somebody in that class that either themselves or somebody else has that experience. So as you were mentioning earlier, like it's more than just CrossFit, it's more than just fitness. There's that connection, that bond with athletes that are in your affiliates back to these athletes. And we use this as kind of our grounding for fundraisers, for buy-in from the community. If we do a fundraiser at Mach, it's more than likely going to be benefiting Fire Denver or Fire National. So there's a lot of connection, a lot of buy-in from our members, and that motivation keeps them basically connected to the community. So, starting from where we are today, or starting to where we are 3 years ago to where we are today, it's kind of morphed a little bit. So we still have our, we invite all Fire Denver athletes if they're ready to come to class. We also have our independent classes for athletes that may be in a higher at-risk category. And then also, we send some of our coaches, we used it as like kind of basically a feeder system for coaches for Fire Denver. We send them to schools in the local area, working with, maybe it's a gym class or whatnot, and also other libraries and other, nonprofits in the Denver area. So it's kind of grown over the course of the 3 years. The other one thing that I'll mention, and if you've ever heard of Redemption Road, that's another nonprofit we work with a lot. So that if you can kind of look at that on the side, but Redemption Road provides fitness, CrossFit to individuals that are incarcerated in Colorado prisons. They've grown the program. We take those coaches on at Mock, and that relationship between Fire Denver and some of the Redemption Road coaches, the bonds that they create, because this, they can talk the talk and walk the walk, because they've been in prison, and some of the conversations that these Redemption Road coaches have had with Fire Denver athletes are the most valuable. We don't have stats or anything like that, but I see it happening from time to time, and I see the conversations and the respect and the trust between Fire Denver athletes and Redemption Road athletes. So just kind of that whole nonprofit, helping each other out in the community has been invaluable for me as an affiliate owner. If you're thinking about opening up and working with a Fire affiliate, I highly recommend it. If you have questions from an affiliate standpoint, I'm happy to address that. You can, and maybe Duncan or somebody can give my contact information. You can email me or call me. Happy to kind of walk through that. I never saw this as a business enhancer. I will say it is 100% a business enhancer, because it will help people in the community stay connected with something that is much more than CrossFit. So it's that secondary kind of benefit from the business standpoint, if you're thinking about it from an affiliate standpoint. So like I said, if you have questions, happy to address them on the side. So thank you, Duncan. Thank you, everybody, for your time today.
Thanks, Fred. Appreciate that. As Fred is mentioning, it is extra, right? It's more to be done within an affiliate. It's more work in a sense, but I think the return on that investment of time and effort is huge in the life of the youth, and then also the community you're creating at your gym. Mock has seen this time and again, just such a cool space for the community, and involves the interest of their affiliate members and pursuits that are bigger than just showing up and getting a workout as far as a member is concerned. So a couple things in the chat. One is I'm going to put a link for that PDF I mentioned before. I'm also going to put my email address. And seriously happy for you guys to use both. Please be in touch. The PDF has Christina's email address, but I just want to take time and make sure we're answering any questions any of you have, any thoughts you have, or questions about the program.
Kelsey, you run yours through a school, correct?
Some of my classes, yes, are run through the school.
Okay. How on average, how often are the kids attending a class, like during the week?
Twice a week.
Okay.
On average. Mm-hmm.
Fred, what about you? How often are they attending a class in your affiliate? Or he's gone.
Yeah, so I'll just jump in and say, I believe Fire Denver is 3 times a week at Mock. But as you may have picked up on, our programs look really different across locations. So some may take place in a particular foster care home, a single home in a single location. Others may take place in a school. Others may take place in a more standard CrossFit box. There's a ton of flexibility about where you can implement this program. And really, it's just a matter of having a willing coach, someone who cares enough to work with these kids, a location, equipment, and several other things that Christina can walk you through to get up and running. But really, it can look a lot of different ways and has looked a lot of different ways over the history of this program.
And I think that's
Sorry,
part of what
I got
makes,
booted out. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
I'm here.
You're good.
I think that's part of what makes this so successful too, is because every community looks so different, right? There are different barriers, different needs, and so you're able to design your local club to meet those needs. And having that national network is just so helpful to see what other people are doing, to get your wheel kind of spinning and thinking about your community and what might be best. But just to speak to what Duncan is saying, I think there's just such an advantage to being able to design your program to meet the needs in your community.
Nice. Awesome. Perfect. Are there any, I think, Randy, do you have a question?
Well, I just first wanted to say thank you so much for sharing such valuable information for me personally. I actually got on this call because I started a nonprofit CrossFit gym at our junior high school last year. And so I'm a year in, and I've been doing it just kind of like ready, fire, aim style, which I'm sure everyone has done something like that. But I did it just because I saw a lot of success from this guy who works with kids after school there as well with the powerlifting program. And he's just such a great ally and cohort, so to speak. I mean, he's actually the PE teacher there, so he's also like really excited about CrossFit and hopes that I can get in there and do other things besides after school programming. But what you're describing is just right up my alley, and so I'm thrilled to learn more about what you do, what you offer, that there's this national platform, so to speak, because I have a background in recreation therapy, a strong connection with mentorship to teenagers. That was something I did before becoming a CrossFit coach. So just thank you so much. And I can't wait to get to know you guys better and hopefully work with you. So.
Well, thanks for doing what you're doing, Randy. It sounds like we're pretty like-minded in what we're interested in. I think one of the things that fire brings with it is this connection to others, the shared networking and best practices, and also the summit and the camp and things like that, that independently you may not have access to, but certainly make your program so much stronger. So happy to provide all of those things and continue the conversation if needed.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Randy, where are you located?
I'm in Bloomington, Indiana.
Okay.
I'm actually at a school just northwest of Bloomington. It's called Edgewood Junior High School. And so it's a smaller community than Bloomington is. Bloomington serves a lot of the college town atmosphere, like a lot of people affiliated with Indiana University. And so then we're kind of a semi-rural community. And we actually are able to work with the nutrition services program there. That's how I actually got my start. Is we got a $10,000 grant through the nutrition services program at our school, and that way we were able to buy some equipment and create a sustainable facility. So that way, when we're doing CrossFit, it doesn't matter if I'm coaching or not, there's always something for the students to use, and then they get to use it in the PE class as well. And then we also have a teacher program after school. So I run 2 CrossFit classes for kids a week after school, and then 3 for teachers after school. So I'm serving specifically the 6th, 7th, 8th graders for the students, and then any teacher in the district or staff person can join the staff class.
That's awesome.
Any other questions? Well, Duncan, it was great having you, and Kelsey and Fred, good to see you guys also. I really appreciate this. again, I'll follow up with this PDF. So if you have additional questions or interest in starting a club, or if you know someone that maybe wasn't able to join and it might be interested, please feel free to share and pass along to them. You can follow them on Instagram. I think all the clubs have their own individual Instagrams as well. So yeah, we appreciate everything that you guys did, and have an amazing day.
Yeah. Thanks for having us on. Thanks for all the work you guys are doing with your athletes every day. Appreciate it.
Yeah.